Hi everybody, my name is Holly. Thank you for joining me for today's yoga. Today's going to be a full body flow, so we're going to be working on strengthening the legs and the upper body. We're also going to be working into opening the hips, and we're going to be doing a couple of twists. This is going to be more of an intermediate flow, but this is yoga on YouTube, so if you are fairly new to yoga and you want to give it a try, then just give it a try, and if it doesn't feel good in your body, then just pick another video. So I'm not going to use any props today, but if you like to use them in your practice, you can have them to hand. And we're just going to start today seated. We're not going to take too long on the warm-up. We're just going to start moving fairly quickly today. So just taking a moment here, lifting out the waist and feeling even in the sitting bones, letting the shoulders drop down away from the ears, maybe closing the eyes or lowering the gaze. And just taking a moment here to settle into your practice, starting to bring your focus to your breath. So inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Trying to make your inhales and exhales the same length. And on our next inhale, we're going to circle our arms up towards the ceiling. We're going to take our right arm down towards the mat as our left arm reaches up and over, taking a side body stretch, opening into the left side, keeping that left hip down. You might be able to come down onto the elbow. Inhaling back through to center, both arms up. Exhaling, we're going to take the left hand down, right arm reaches up and over, keeping that right hip down. Inhaling back through to center, both arms up towards the ceiling. We're going to take our left hands down towards our right knee, our right fingertips behind us. Inhaling to lift out of the waist, exhaling to twist over to the right. Maybe taking your gaze over this right shoulder. With every inhale, we lift out of the waist. With every exhale, we might twist a little deeper. On our next inhale, come back through to center, both arms up towards the ceiling, then taking our right hand down onto our left knee, left fingertips behind us. Inhale as we lift out of the waist, exhaling to take a twist over to the left. Maybe taking your gaze over this left shoulder. On an inhale, coming back through to center, both arms up. Exhaling, bringing both hands onto the knee. We'll do some seated cat-cow. So on an inhale, we're reaching the chest forward, drawing the shoulder blades together. Exhaling to round through the upper back, chin to chest. Inhaling to reach the chest forward. Exhaling to round. 2 more times, inhaling. Exhaling. And final time, inhaling. And exhaling. And from here, we'll make our way into our tabletop pose. So knees underneath the hips, wrists underneath the shoulders. On an inhale, we'll take our right arm up towards the ceiling, opening into the chest. On an exhale, we're going to thread the needle, bring the right hand behind the left wrist, coming onto the right shoulder and right ear. Keeping those hips over the knees. Maybe pressing through this left hand to open up into that right shoulder blade a bit more, or you might want to take a little bind so you can bring this left hand behind the lower back, maybe wrapping it around the front of the right thigh. If you do have the bind, releasing that left hand back down. On an inhale, we'll unwind, so bringing our right hands up towards the ceiling, opening across the chest, exhaling back down into tabletop. Going the opposite side, inhaling, lifting left hand up towards the ceiling, exhaling, thread the needle, bringing the left hand behind the right wrist, coming down onto the left ear, left shoulder. You might want to take that bind, So bringing that right hand behind the lower back, maybe wrapping it around that left thigh, peeling that right shoulder back. If you do have the bind, releasing this right hand back and then unwinding. So on an inhale, lifting that left hand up towards the ceiling, exhaling back down into tabletop, moving into puppy pose. So walking our hands in front of us, bringing our chest down towards the mat, maybe taking our foreheads on the mat, maybe taking our chin onto the mat if it feels okay in the neck, keeping the hips over the knees. Feeling that opening into the upper back and into the shoulders. On our next inhale, we're going to start to walk our hands back, coming back into our tabletop pose, and we'll just wag our hips from side to side, just releasing the back. And then we'll come into our first downward facing dog. So hands slightly in front of the shoulders, feet hip width distance apart, tucking the toes, exhaling, sending that tailbone high. So taking any movement that feels good in your downward facing dog. So you might want to lengthen out the back of the legs by paddling the feet a few times. You might want to wave the hips from side to side. You just might want to stay still for this first downward facing dog, whatever feels good for you. On our next inhale, we'll make our way to the top of the mat. So bending into the knees, gaze comes towards the hands, and we walk our feet up to the top of the mat, coming into a ragdoll fold. So bending into those knees, laying the chest down across the thighs, maybe catching a hold of opposite elbows with the hands, maybe swaying gently from side to side, releasing down the back of the body, releasing the lower back. Maybe nodding the head yes a few times, shaking the head no, holding no tension in the neck here. And then releasing those fingertips down to the mat, we'll roll all the way up to standing, pressing through the heels, keeping a bend in the knees, rolling all the way up the spine, bringing the shoulders up towards the ears, rolling them back and down. And we'll start to flow. So on an inhale, circling our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead. Exhale, bringing those hands out wide as we dive down over the body. Inhaling into our half lift, flat back. So palms can come onto shins or fingertips can stay on the mat, finding length in the spine here. Exhaling to fold. Placing the hands on the mat, stepping back into plank pose. On an exhale, bending at the elbows, lowering all the way down to the mat, untucking those toes, inhaling into cobra, keeping a bend in the elbows, hugging them in towards the ribs, feeling that opening down the front of the body. Exhaling to lower, making our way into downward facing dog. On our next inhale, we're sending that right leg high. And we're going to open up into the hips. So bending into knee, sending that knee up towards the ceiling, opening the hips out to the right. Maybe you want to take a gaze under that left armpit. You might be able to see your right toes behind you. On our next exhale, we're going to bring this knee in towards the nose, hugging the belly in towards the spine, stepping this right foot in between the hands, turning back foot parallel with the back of the mat. We're opening out into our warrior two. Pressing down evenly through both feet. Shoulders directly over the hips. Gazes over the middle finger of the right hand. On our next exhale, we're going to bring our hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers. We're going to take a variation of humble warrior. So inhaling, opening into the chest. As we exhale, we're diving down to the inside of that right thigh, maybe taking those knuckles off the lower back and up towards the ceiling. Making sure those shoulders aren't rolling down towards the ears, draw them back in towards the shoulder blades. Releasing those hands onto the lower back, pressing down through both feet on an inhale, lifting the chest. Coming back into warrior two. We'll make our way into side angle pose, bringing our right hand onto the right thigh, left arm reaches up and over. Opening that chest up towards the ceiling, rolling that left shoulder back. Maybe taking this right hand down towards the mat, but making sure that chest stays open towards the ceiling. Gaze can come to the palm of the left hand if it's comfortable for your neck, or just keep your gaze down towards the mat. On our next exhale, we're going to lower this left hand down, so both hands are to the inside of the right foot. We're turning these hips down to face the mat. We're coming into lizard, so coming up onto the ball of the back foot. Keep that back knee lifted. Maybe coming down onto the forearms. Finding length in the spine here, reaching that crown of the head forward. Feel that lengthening down the front of the left leg. If anyone wants to take a variation of lizard here, we can start to shuffle our right shoulder underneath the right thigh as far as you can underneath, and maybe you want to fly this lizard, so it's not quite flying lizard, but it's what I've always called flying lizard. So lifting both arms up off the mat, really strong in the legs here. Exhaling to lower the hands down, and then bring in that right shoulder and right hand back to the inside of that right leg. We're going to step the right leg back. We're in plank pose, moving through a vinyasa. So exhaling to chaturanga or all the way down. Inhaling into cobra or upward facing dog. Exhaling into downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. You're probably really feeling it in that right leg. So let's even things out. On an inhale, taking our left leg up towards the ceiling, bending into knee, opening up the hips. So taking that left knee up towards the ceiling. On our next exhale, we're bringing that left knee in towards the nose. Weight comes over the wrist, stepping that left foot in between the hands. Turning back foot so it's parallel with the back of the mat and opening out into our warrior two. On our next exhale, releasing the hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers. We're coming into humble warrior. Inhaling to lift the chest, drawing the shoulder blades together. Exhaling, diving down to the inside of that left leg. Maybe taking the knuckles off the lower back and up towards the ceiling. Releasing those knuckles back onto the lower back, pressing down through the feet, inhaling to lift the chest, coming back into warrior two, and then transitioning into side angle pose. Bringing left forearm down onto the left thigh, right arm reaches up and over, rolling that right shoulder back. You might want to bring that left hand down onto the mat, but keep that chest rolling open. Gazes towards the palm of the right hand or down towards the mat. On our next exhale, we're coming into lizard, so we're going to lower this right hand down. So both hands are to the inside of this left foot. We're turning on the ball, the back foot, and our hips are facing the mat. Keep that back knee lifted. Engage in that back leg, maybe coming down onto the forearms. If you want to come into that variation of lizard, you can start to shrug this left shoulder underneath the right thigh, and maybe you want to float your hands off the mat. We're feeling really strong in the legs here to keep you lifted. On our next exhale, releasing the hands down, bring in that left hand and left shoulder back to the inside of the left leg. Stepping left foot back, we're in our plank pose, moving through a vinyasa, exhaling to chaturanga or all the way down. Inhaling into cobra or upward facing dog, exhaling, downward facing dog. On our next inhale, lifting that right leg up towards the ceiling. Keep the hips squared. On an exhale, bring that right knee in towards the nose. Stepping that right foot in between the hands. We're coming into our high lunge. So you can keep the back leg straight or keep a bend in the back knee if you need to. Squaring off the hips. On our next exhale, we'll move into a twist. So we're bringing left hand forward, right arm behind us, opening to the right. Maybe taking our gaze over this right hand. On our next exhale, we're coming into easy twist. So we're going to drop this left hand down towards the mat, reaching right arm up towards the ceiling, taking our gaze up to the top hand. Keep that back knee lifted. From here, we'll transition into side plank. So making sure left wrist is directly under the shoulder, we're going to step this right foot back and stack it on top of the left foot. Keep those hips lifted and stacking the hips here so we're not rolling. Those hips open towards the ceiling. Those hips are facing the long edge of the mat. You might want to reach this right arm up overhead, or just keep it facing up towards the ceiling. Taking one more inhale here as we exhale, lowering right hand down back into our plank pose. Moving through a vinyasa, exhaling to bend at the elbows, chaturanga all the way down. Inhaling into cobra or up dog. Exhaling, downward facing dog. On an inhale, we'll send this left leg up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, knee in towards the nose, stepping this left foot in between the hands, coming into our high lunge. Squaring off the hips here. On our next exhale, we'll open out into our twist. So we're bringing right hand forward, left hand behind us, turn into the long edge of the mat, maybe taking our gaze over this back hand. On our next exhale, coming into easy twist, we're going to lower this right hand down to the mat as the left arm reaches up towards the ceiling. From here, we'll transition into side plank. So making sure right wrist is directly under right shoulder. We're going to step this left foot back, stack it on top of the right foot. Turn in towards the long edge of the mat. Keep those hips lifted. Feeling strong in that right arm. Maybe taking that reach. So reach in our left arm up and over the ear. On our next exhale, lowering left hand down into plank, moving through a vinyasa, exhaling into chaturanga, inhaling into upward facing dog, exhaling, downward facing dog. And then lowering our knees down onto the mat. Big toes together, we'll come into child's pose. So laying our chest down across the thighs, lowering our foreheads onto the mat, and then bringing our hands onto our heels. We're going to stretch into the upper back and into the neck. We're going to move into rabbit pose, so keeping a hold of the heels. We're going to lift our hips and roll up onto the crown of the head. So you should feel a nice stretch into the shoulders and upper back here. If it feels uncomfortable on your neck, just back out of the pose. And exhaling to lower the hips and rolling back down onto the forehead. And then inhaling, we'll lift the chest and we'll come to standing on our knees. So from here, we're going to move into camel pose. So tuck in the toes if you need to, or you can come down onto the tops of the feet, whatever feels good for you. And then bringing our hands onto the lower back. Imagine you're getting ready to place them into your back pockets. Opening up into the chest here, drawing elbows towards each other, shoulder blades together. On an inhale, we're going to take our chest and gaze up towards the ceiling. So this might be enough for you, but if you want to come into holding onto the heels, you can lower one hand down, maybe the other, checking how this feels in the body. If it doesn't feel right for you, back out of it. You might come down onto the tops of the feet and come a little deeper, but only go in as far as is comfortable in your spine today. Keep that chest lifted. If you like to drop the head backwards, you can. I don't like it. Keeping those hips over the knees. And then to come out of this pose, bringing one hand onto the lower back. And on an inhale, lifting the chest and then lowering our hips back down onto the heels and taking a moment here, resisting that urge to fold forward. And then turn into the long edge of the mat. We're going to bring our right leg out long. And now we'll take a bend in the left knee and have that foot in towards the shin bones. We're going to take a side stretch. So we're going to bring our right hand down the inside of our right leg as our left arm reaches up and over. So keeping that chest rolling open. Don't worry about holding the toes. We're just working on opening into that left side body, keeping that left hip down on the mat. Inhaling to come back through to center. This time we're going to bring the left leg out long and then bending into this right knee as the right heel comes in towards the sitting bones, bringing the back of the left hand down the inside of the left leg, reaching right arm up and over. Taking that side stretch to the right this time, keeping that right hip down. Inhaling to come back through to center, lifting the chest. Maybe bringing this, bringing this right leg out and bringing our legs out wide. So this might be enough for you. You're getting a nice stretch to the inner thighs. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you can start to creep those fingertips forward, trying to find length in the spine here so you're not rounding through the upper back. Maybe bringing those elbows and forearms down onto the mat. Pushing through the heels here, drawing those toes back towards you and making sure those knees and toes are in alignment so they're both pointing up towards the ceiling. And on our next inhale, we're going to start to walk our hands back in towards the chest as we lift the chest, and we're going to hold on to the outside of our thighs and gently bring our legs back in towards each other, and then turn in back onto our mats. Keeping a bend in the knees, soles of the feet down on the mat, reaching the arms out at shoulder height. Slowly with control, we're going to roll all the way down the spine until we bring our shoulders down onto the mat and bringing our heads down onto the mat. So we're going to take our right knee and cross it over the left knee, and we're going to bring both knees in towards the chest. And then we're going to catch a hold of our feet, so maybe the outside of our feet, and draw our heels down towards the outside of our hips. We're coming into reclined shoelace pose, some people call it, or cow face pose. And you should feel a nice stretch into the right hip. And then releasing the feet, but keeping that right knee crossed over the left knee. We're going to bring our arms out at shoulder height, so maybe keeping them straight or cactus in the arms. Taking an inhale here. As we exhale, we're going to drop our knees down to the left as our gaze comes over to the right. If this is too much with the legs crossed, just uncross the legs and stack the knees together instead. Keeping that right shoulder down. On an inhale, engaging that core, bringing those knees back through to center. Releasing the arms, uncrossing those legs, and this time crossing left knee over the right knee. Bringing the knees in towards the chest, catching a hold of the outside of the feet and drawing those heels down to the outside of the hips. This time we should feel the stretch in the left hip. Noticing if one side is tighter than the other. So normally I feel things a lot more on the left, but actually today I'm feeling it. I felt it way more the first time we did this pose on the right side. And then releasing those feet, but keeping the knees in towards the chest. We're going to bring our arms out at shoulder height, cactus the arms if you don't have the room. Taking an inhale here as we exhale, we're going to drop those knees down to the right as our gaze comes over to the left. Keeping that left shoulder down, opening into the chest. On an inhale, engaging that core, we're going to bring our knees back through to center, uncrossing the legs, releasing the arms. And from here, we'll come into happy baby pose. So taking our soles of the feet up towards the ceiling, keeping a bend in the knees. We're going to bring our arms to the inside of the legs as our hands hold onto the outside of the feet, pulling those knees down towards the armpits and keeping that tailbone down. So you can take a little movement here. You might want to sway from side to side, or you just might want to stay in some stillness. And then releasing from happy baby and bringing our knees in towards the chest, wrapping our arms around the shins and just swaying gently from side to side. And then holding onto the back of the thighs, we're going to rock up and down the spine to seated. But if you prefer to roll to one side and push yourself up with your hands, you can do that. And then coming into how we started. And resting our hands in our lap, shoulders down away from the ears, lowering the gaze or closing the eyes. And just taking a moment here to see how the body feels, how the hips feel, how the legs feel, how the shoulders feel. We'll close off our practice on an inhale, circling our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead and bringing them down through to the heart. Give yourselves a little thank you for making time to get on the mat today, and then bowing our forehead to our fingertips. Thank you. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.